All right, now it says we are live. All right, and so we're streaming here on my Facebook page on Sugar Free Self Care. So hello, everybody. Welcome to my live chat with the lovely and amazing Debra Mittler. She is a spiritual healer and also transformational coach, and she has an amazing journey that I want her to talk about here in this call. But anyway, Debra, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. And we just want to let them know if there's any technical difficulties, just know that that may happen. So we just want to prepare you for that. But thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here. Yeah. So how do you want to start the interview?
Yay. So I see it's on the Facebook page. So we're good. All right, we are live. So what I wanted to, first of all, thank you all of you. If we do have the technical difficulties, it happens and it's fine, but we'll do our best. So the first thing I wanted to open with is, if Debra, could you tell us a little bit more about you? Like, what very briefly, like what brought you to this place where you are now, like helping others heal, helping people with addictions and self-love? Like, what brought you to that path, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so my journey, so for over 23 years, I was in and out of hospitals and treatment centers, mostly for anorexia, but I also had depression, anxiety, and many suicide attempts, and a lot of things, anything to cope with the life that I was living. I never felt good enough inside, all those things that we deal with growing up. My childhood wasn't the easiest childhood. There was a lot of, I'm going to say, emotional shaming, which for me was very traumatic. And I grew up believing that it's not okay for me to be me, so anything I did was wrong, bad, stupid, stop, I was constantly teased for being fat. So that was, I took that as my body was wrong. And since I'm in my body, that I'm wrong, that, so all these things started happening around that. And I started, you went out. I started harming myself. And then at age 13, actually I overate as a kid to try to help myself feel comforted in a home that I didn't feel very comfortable in. And food became my friend, my lover, anything. Like my whole obsession during childhood, I don't remember much except for the screaming and eating. Like that was like all I remember. And at age 13, my doctor told me to go on a diet, and I took it to extreme. And at age 15, I entered my first hospital for anorexia. And for the next 23 years, I was in and out of hospitals and treatment centers, and I never got better there. They just kept putting weight on me and never really helping me to love myself or really understand what was really going on. They were working with the symptom instead of the cause. And, I got kicked out of a lot of treatment centers, and my last treatment center told me that they didn't want to take me at the beginning, that, that they couldn't help me. And they said, you know what, you're just going to die because nobody can help you. Like they try to instill that in me. And, my mom wouldn't let me come home, and I was on the streets for a couple of days. And then my mom finally let me come home, and I went to an OA meeting, but then I went to Al-Anon because in OA, it just didn't seem right. And I met a sponsor. She gave me the book Power of Intention, and I started reading that. I was like, something woke up inside of me because, I never really appreciated being here. I hated being here. I hated myself. I hated living. I just didn't know how to be still in my body. I felt I deserved to be punished, and I acted in those ways towards myself. And when someone would tell me you just need to love yourself, I'd be like, what do you mean? How do you do that? I didn't even understand what self-love is because nothing in my body computed with that. Even though intellectually, yeah, that's right. But all these ideas, beliefs, and concepts that I bought into about myself made me believe that I deserve to be punished. So I act in those ways. And no matter how much work I did mentally, I never changed my patterns internally. No matter how many treatment centers I went in, I just doesn't make sense to me that doctors wouldn't help me deal with the underlying issue. I just wanted somebody to see me, to love me for who I was. scold me for being the way I was being, instead of trying to understand me. And, you know, in treatment centers, actually, it was hard for me because I felt like they were just adding more trauma to the trauma. It's like, okay, so I'm anorexic, so I'm going to force you to eat. Well, that was my big, you know, and just like, so that trauma activated more fear inside of me. It's like, no, you're bad if you don't do this, which that's trauma, right? So even in one treatment center, they want to give me electric shock therapy. I'm like, I don't life in other people's hands. And my parents were scared. They didn't know what else to do. So they trusted the doctors and treatment centers and everything else. And, you know, here I was, nobody should have to live in self-torture for 23 years. So that's why I do what I do. You know, my path of healing has taken me to where I'm at today. And I actually healed myself from depression, from anxiety, from my eating disorder, both sides, you know, anorexia and overeating, deal for me. You know, there you go. There you go.
But what was the last thing you said?
So I said I also had compulsive exercising. So that's how I found relief. You know, the whole eating exercise routine helped me to find relief, you know, and that's what I think a lot of people are looking for in sugar and food and you know, anything. You know, we could look for something outside of ourselves to try to find relief from what's going on internally. And a lot of people don't understand that. It's like these automatic coping mechanisms aren't we just reach for them because we don't know how to deal with ourselves, you know. So you hear the noise on your side? Is there noise on your side or no?
Yeah. Sorry, it's a little loud in the background. My bad. But something I thought that was interesting you said was how you healed yourself of something like of depression and how you helped yourself do that, even though you were told so many times you're not going to get better. You're told by all these experts that, you know, you're not going to heal. How did you overcome that? How did you find that, you know, that motivation to overcome that when that must have been, you know, discouraging to hear so many people tell you those kind of messages?
Yeah, it's interesting because I look back, everybody asks me, well, what was the turning point? When did you just start? It's like, it wasn't really a choice. I truly believe in a higher power, and I truly believe in soul purpose. So there was something in me that I finally activated, you know, and it's been a process. I did the mental route, you know, I read all the self-books, I did like all the stuff, you know, trying to manage my food and weight and exercise and trying to heal from depression and trying to heal from anxiety and it was like I was working against myself. I needed to understand what that part needed and bring it into loving. I didn't gain weight by focusing on the food and weight. I didn't get better from depression by focusing on the depression. I got better through self-love. But how do you do that when you don't know what that is, right? So it's that first step, like honoring that part that doesn't feel love, talking to that part, trying to understand it. There's many different parts that are going on inside of us, and we're not even aware of that. We just have resistance to something we don't know why. But there's a reason why. We need to understand that reason. And working with it consciously, we're not going to understand that reason because our protector part will come in and logic and reason things and say, like a lot of times, like, oh, I know why I do this, right? Okay, you know why. But mentalizing is different from actually feeling it. You know, our body runs in a certain way. So our system, we go into it's like we're stimulus response machines, right? So we go into a situation, we automatically respond in that situation in a certain way. That's because something gets activated in our body. What we want to do is shift the energy in our body. So when we go into that situation, we don't have that same response. That's not mental. You know, I think mindfulness is really important, but until we actually shift the energy within, those automatic responses will continuously come up. And it takes a lot more energy to be more mindful in those situations than to just go with what our energy body is doing. So that's the type of work that I do. It's not not just mental. It's really moving into the energy field. It's really finding that little inner child inside of us that was hurt, that was, what abused for me, that was, whatever misunderstandings that we buy into as a little being, we create a core belief, and our core belief dictates everything around us. And say, for instance, if I'm unlovable, I'm going to start acting in ways that are unlovable, consciously or unconsciously, So, and it matches. We always act in accordance with our belief system. So our belief system is filtering everything that we think, feel, do, believe, say, think, It's like not even conscious choices. So it's in healing, to me, is loving and returning to your soul's essence. It's unconditional love and acceptance, returning to your soul's essence. So that's what I help my clients do. It's not so much, I think a lot of people teach, it's like follow this 10-step process, It's more a process of reigniting to the truth of who we are, because a lot of us have disconnected from that because of certain experiences when we were younger. It was a survival mechanism.
Right.
If I can't be, I need to be who you want me to be. So our attention was out there on how we should be in order to be loved and accepted. And it's important because our survival depended on it. But now as adults, we can't really make choices from our hearts and souls because we're out there trying to do it right. We're trying to see, this person, what does this person need so I could be liked? What does this, so all that. And we're not really happy because we're not living from our truth. We can get all these things out there. We can do anything. But at the end of the day, we're with ourselves. It's like, who is this person? I don't even know because I've been trying to be
Right.
So, yeah.
I mean, like, how did you make that distinguishment, though, that you had that choice? Like, you could live for yourself and not other people. Like, what finally gave you that that ability to see that was an option for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been a lot of healing work. I've been doing serious healing on myself. Shadow working is really important, going into the shadows, but understanding what drives my behavior, that fear of heart, that fear, oh my God, if somebody looks at me wrong, then I'm not loved. If I'm not loved, then I'm not safe. If I'm not safe, then that's death, right? So it spirals down more and more and more. It's our core belief, like, I am unlovable. Okay, so what's underneath that? Why do you fear being unlovable? So that fear being unlovable is compensating for everything that we do, right? No, I need to be lovable. I need to do this, this, and this, because if I'm lovable, then I'll survive. Then I'll be okay, and unfortunately, it's like we learn our patterns in childhood and we keep doing them as we grow up unconsciously. And then it's like, it's such a pattern inside of us. We don't even know what we're doing. We don't even know why not enough people question why they're doing what they're doing. What's the motivation behind what we're doing? A lot of people, we have human needs. And one of the biggest human needs is to be loved and accepted, right? And connection. So if we're denying that in any way, or if we don't feel we have a way to get that, we'll manipulate, we'll do anything we can to get that, which is another way we also disconnect from ourselves, and then we're not honest. So we hate ourselves at the end of the day. So we try to numb ourselves with food, drugs, alcohol, or whatever. And you see how that spiral happens. It's not going unconsciously. It's all this unconscious stuff. And we don't even know why we do what we do. We just do it, right?
Right. I heard a yoga teacher explain that recently. She said, there's not enough human beings. We're a lot of human doings. Right. And we just do a lot of stuff all the time. And so what I was curious about is, you mentioned, there was a point you mentioned about, shoot, I just lost my train of thought. There was a question I had.
You want me to rewind? I'm kidding.
Okay, so understanding the why behind what you do, it sounded like once you grasped that, like once you started seeing, like, just kind of looking maybe at yourself, like more from a point of like, why do I do what I do? That started to help you make those shifts toward that journey for you, like first trying to understand yourself, and then is that kind of what started you off to changing your healing process?
That whole sentence was mishmash. Can you repeat that one more time? Sorry, it didn't come through.
It's okay. So I guess for you, because a lot of people would be in the same exact situation you were and probably felt like, oh, this is terrible, like there's so many terrible things happening to me. But the thing that helped you get power over that was just having that curiosity about why you're doing what you're doing, and kind of learning more about how the mind works. Was that kind of like where you started?
I think we saw. Can you hear me?
Oh no, did I
Technical difficulties. No, we're good. We're good. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, going to the root cause is really important. That's why I say inner child healing. That's where it all starts. My inner child would not, like in the visualizations that I was doing at the beginning, she would not come out from behind the tree because she was so scared of me. It's just like there's just this energy. Like we think our inner child, we look at pictures or whatever, but it's an energy inside of us. But it's great to imagine it because for the mind, it needs some type of visual. So it's like she just would not. So that is the first step, inner child healing, going to the root cause where this all started, But as far as my journey, it's been a process. In 2001, I went to hypnosis school. So I started learning about the workings of the subconscious mind. I started practicing it on myself. I still wasn't changing I still wasn't changing my patterns though. It was like things were like there was something more powerful than just that. And so, I still worked mentally and sometimes, I did the process on myself or whatever, relapsed, but there was something inside of me that was still pushing anything about love away. So years and years and years doing that. That's what I'm saying. Nobody should have to spend years of doing this. I finally figured out what is really going on. And, it's like, it's not necessary to spend years in therapy. It's not necessary to spend years reading self-help books and working on the mental and saying affirmations when you don't even believe it, but you're just saying it because it feels better in the moment, all that stuff. Fast forward, then in 2011, I went to spiritual psychology school, and that was really amazing because I went deeper and I started learning about the ego and our spiritual essence and things like that. So I connected more. And during that, I started connecting with the spirit realm more. And I connected to my main guide, who I call Loving Voice, who is my higher self. And she has helped me along the way. She's given me processes that aren't anywhere, like I'm not reading books about this. This is just healing that comes through me and guides me. And recently through this quarantine, I've been given this process that's like embodies it all that I've learned over the years, And it's just ridiculous. Nobody should have to spend another day of their lives hating themselves. When we tap into our spiritual interest, when we anchor in that, and it is a process, but it's not like 10, 20 years, it's a daily practice, but it's also a process, but not many of us know how to get to that place. So that's where I get my clients to, is that place inside of them and allow them to have that power that they're not dependent on everybody else and all these books and stuff. Like all they have to do is go within and check in with that space inside of them and get their answers, So until we feel safe with ourselves, we'll be looking outside to everything and everyone else to try to find safety and comfort. So we want to have a place where we're more safe within ourselves. So we'll be like, okay, this is happening. I'm okay. We don't need to grab that cookie or anything else to try to help ourselves feel okay, because we know how to feel okay because we're connected to the truth of who we are, and that's all okay. The world doesn't teach us that. The world teaches, start to accumulate things, consumerism, food, drugs, sex, alcohol, not necessarily teach us, but a lot of us gravitate towards that because it's a lot easier than actually, going within and looking at things and really understanding and getting to know ourselves. It can be scary. Not only the dark side, the light side. A lot of people say I'm scared of the shadows, but most of us are actually scared of our light, our great qualities, because maybe when we were younger, we were told not to do that, not to, don't do that, don't, or we are shamed for it, or we are told, we're drawing and somebody said it was ugly or stupid, or for me, like when I remember in second grade, or maybe it was fourth grade, I think it's fourth grade, I was standing in front of the class, how you have to do speeches. I was shaking and shaking. And everybody was laughing at me. It's like, now I love to speak, but that because
Uh-oh, you froze a little bit. Are you there? Uh-oh, did we lose you? Oh, there you are. I was like, we lost her.
Oh well. Perfect time.
It's okay. We're still getting so much good stuff here. So I was curious. Oh, we good? Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool. So I'm curious, like what would you tell a client who is struggling with, say, like maybe they do have some kind of addiction to sugar or food? How would you help them? What would your process be for basically helping them to gain awareness of the reason why they're doing that? Like, how would you help them see that? And then how would you help them to find those answers in themselves to, like, to explore their own thoughts and to, see what's possible without food? Because I feel like that really is scary. Like when you start like looking into exploring that and you're like trying to figure out things for yourself and not depend on certain external sources for comfort and things. Like, how do you teach someone to not do that? Because that's kind of a big transition.
First is loving acceptance. So however we're feeling, to be okay with that, because I think it's when we judge ourselves and all that criticism is we feel we have any self-hatred, self-judgment. When you feel that coming in, stop, take a deep breath and ask yourself, wait a minute, how do I want to be with myself right now? Feelings aren't bad within themselves. It's the judgment we have not against ourselves, the judgment we have about feeling the way we're feeling that makes us feel wrong for having those feelings, So if as a younger child, which most of us stop crying, most of us were told, stop crying, don't feel that way, if we don't have a parent that modeled that our feelings were okay, we take that as we're not okay. So anytime we have a feeling that's uncomfortable, we try to run from it because you don't want to have that not feeling okay, right? Especially if mommy and daddy are going to get mad at you if you have that feeling. So this is how we learn to suppress our feelings, but our feelings are great. It's like, it's showing us, if we're angry, well, what am I angry about? Hey, is that person crossing my boundaries? Am I angry because I'm not getting my needs met? It's like, there's so many things. We got to listen to what our feelings are saying. So I help my clients with that. The first session is, So the first session is going to the root cause, So if somebody comes in, say, for instance, with your clients, the sugar, right? So we want to go to the root cause when it started, what is behind all that? Because that's just a symptom, anything out here is a symptom. So we want to focus on that. That'll happen naturally. I gain weight naturally from anorexia. I couldn't keep it on no matter what. When I went in treatment centers, they put weight on me and I lose it, put it on me, lose it. I didn't focus on it. It just started happening when I started learning how to love myself. I wanted to be good to myself. I wanted to take care of myself. Plus, I also fell in love with somebody and I wanted to be healthy to get her, which is a whole nother story. But I think like she was the catalyst for me to like want to be healthy. It's like, hey, you know what? If I am healthy, I can have a beautiful experience with another human being. Now, it wasn't easy because I didn't know how to really be in a relationship because I didn't know how to be in a relationship with myself. So that always starts first, because our relationship with ourselves affects everything else in our lives. It affects our relationship with money, it affects our relationship with food, it affects our relationship with others. Everything is a reflection of our relationship with ourselves. So that's what we work on. We work on a relationship with ourselves, learning how to be with ourselves in loving ways, understanding when things come up that we're not bad or wrong because things happen. Those judgments are what makes us want to run away from ourselves instead of running towards ourselves and holding ourselves and loving ourselves during those times when we're scared, And sometimes we need that support. It's okay to ask for support. A lot of people feel shame about that. I'm having a hard time because, you see all over Facebook, no, don't share about your problems, only share positivity, nobody will like you. It's like, what kind of world are we living in? Suppression. Suppression leads to depression. Suppression leads to anxiety. Suppression leads to addiction. All that stuff, and underneath all that is shame and trauma. So we're just adding trauma to the trauma. We're not helping people heal, But the thing is, if you're relying on other people who also suppress, and they don't want to see that, because if you're feeling sad, it activates their sad, and they can't feel that sad. So they're going to try to suppress your sad, which is like, it's this dance you're doing. That's why it's important to build healthy relationships. But the most important relationship is with ourselves, right? Because we're always with ourselves. So.
Right. And I mean, I love that you said it's not like, it's that judgment of ourselves that is what makes us feel terrible, and having those thoughts, like that's those feelings that we want to escape. I was curious, like when you're talking about your relationship with yourself, especially what you help with your clients with, and how you started gaining the weight naturally, which I think is amazing. How did you basically like start, I guess, like what does like a non-judgmental relationship with yourself look like, in terms of like, is that the way you talk to yourself, or is it the way you treat yourself? Like how do you define that for you?
Yeah, so noticing, I always say noticing the self-talk, between self-love and self-hate. So a lot of times, like, we're so automatically conditioned to judge ourselves. It's like, if we don't, if we're not mindful, those automatic responses are going to come in. Oh shit, why did I do that? I'm so stupid, or something happens and we're not even thinking it consciously, but we feel inside. Like sometimes I'm on Facebook and I'll feel like, so I'll close it and I'll sit with myself and I'll hold that part of me, want to understand that part of me and what it's feeling and why it's feeling. And a lot of times it is judgment, either against myself or another person. Now, the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference. So if we're hating others, that self-hate's hating us through that projection. And most people don't understand that, So no matter what you're doing, you're feeling it. So if you're hating somebody, you're feeling it. It's poison, So learning that, like learning compassion, but compassion for ourselves with how we're feeling is the first step. We need to clear it up inside. We can't clear it up outside, because that's just a reflection of what's going on inside. If somebody comes at us and they're angry, a lot of people say the world's a mirror, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not always, because if somebody comes out at us and they're angry and we're okay with it, we just have compassion for them, then they're not a mirror to us. But if we get triggered, then there's an opportunity for some healing and to know the difference there, and not just say, oh, I don't care what anybody thinks of me, I'm just gonna da-da-da-da. But if you're actually feeling something, then there's something in there that's being activated. I always say people who trigger us are
You say, sorry, your voice cut out, but you say that people who trigger you are what? You said people who trigger you are what?
Are we back?
Hello? Hello? Hi? Hello? No, Debra. Hello? You there? I hear you sometimes. Oh, I think I see you.
and then you went away.
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Ah, there you are. Dang it, we were just coming up on a really good point. I really wanted to emphasize the point you just made, though, because you were saying, like, especially when you have people around you who are triggering you, like you were saying, not to avoid them, but basically it's like they're teaching you something. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so anybody who triggers us, right, who makes us better aware, boom, if we just walk away and blame them, we're missing the point of healing. Somebody else is going to do the same thing. With that energy, we're going to filter our perceptions and points of views through that same experience that they activated. So that's what I'm saying. If you have compassion for someone who's doing that, it's different. Now this comes into boundary things, right? So we're all talking about boundaries lately. It's like, I'm going to set my boundaries, be clear, and that's important. But if you're setting boundaries to avoid your own inner healing, you got to look at that. Because boundaries is kind of I'm going to get rid of this person because I don't want to look at that part of me, because every time they come into my life, they activate it. Now there's a certain way, so it's like, get clear first before you set those boundaries. Like, what is going on inside me? What is it that I need to speak? How is this affecting me? Do I feel like I'm being disrespected? Do I feel, where's that coming from? Feel it, know it, heal it. And give yourself that respect that you're wanting from that person. And then you can go, hey, you know what? I'm feeling very disrespected. Always own it. Don't blame them. I'm feeling disrespected right now, or something like that. Let people know. A boundary is very clear when we're owning it. We're not blaming the other person for how they're being. We can't control somebody else, but we can say, hey, you know what? You want to be around me. This is what I accept. This is the type of behavior that I accept. If you don't want to, be in this way, then I'm going to choose to, so there's certain ways of setting boundaries that are appropriate, because it's to take care of ourselves, and in a sense, it's also taking care of the other person. So yeah, I mean, the healing journey. There's so much to learn. There's not. And nothing's set in stone. That's why it's so important to listen within. A lot of people read a book and then they try, and it's like, it doesn't even resonate with them, but they're just following it because somebody told them to do it, right?
Right.
It's like, you check within yourself, and test the waters, Sometimes it's going to work with certain people, and sometimes it won't work with certain people as far as boundaries, So, but you got to be clear, and you got to stay strong in them, because it's like, if you set boundaries, and then, you fall back like, oh, well, I don't feel right about this anymore because the people pleaser comes up and you're scared of them abandoning you. This happens a lot in relationships. A lot of people are just roommates. Right. They're not in a relationship. They're just like, because they're scared to actually speak their truth. So it's easier to keep that superficial level going. But, and that's, everybody's different. I'm not saying that that's the way, because if that's how you want relationships to be, great. Who am I to say? I personally, I know I was scared of that. And one reason, like, my relationships didn't work in the past was because I didn't know how to speak up. Instead, I would just get mad at them, But, that's something that we can learn in relationship, is how to communicate, how to be a good listener to your partner, and how to also, for the partner to be a good listener to you. It takes two. It's not just like, hey, I'm going to work on this, and you just. If both people aren't willing to work on it, it's like, it's just not going to work, But right. like I said, the most important relationship, get clear on what we're wanting and needing and what's important to us. What do we value, and that's just, like I said, the most important relationship is the relationship with ourselves.
Right. I mean, but that's a good point you bring up. I think that a lot of people miss out on is really like knowing what you want and what your values are and what your needs are. Cause I feel like there is so much of that people pleasing going on that people kind of lose their identity. Like they don't even know what they want. They don't know who they are. And so I feel like there's a struggle for a lot of people. Like like when the other person isn't there, like what do they want? Like, how do they find that for themselves? And I think that's what's so interesting about the boundaries thing too, because before you could set a boundary, you have to know yourself. Like you really have to know what you want and what you need, and know that you don't find that from other people. So
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot going on there, but I think the core of it is really like listening to yourself, getting to know yourself, being having an honest relationship with yourself, and like hearing, like getting to know you, like who are you, like what do you like, what do you need, what do you want. What was that process like for you, like going through that journey of just getting to know yourself? Like was it scary, was it awkward, or
all of it?
I'm like, that must have been uncomfortable.
It was exciting and scary and uncomfortable, because I not had to, but a lot of things, uncovering a lot of the stuff that I suppressed because it wasn't accepted when I was little. So to really embrace that part of me was a little challenging, because it was like, oh, if I do, I might get in trouble. Even though my parents aren't alive today, my system was running in that. So, it's been a process of loving myself, holding myself when I got scared. How I started making videos was I was having a session with my guide one day, and clearing a lot of stuff about being seen, being shining in the world or whatever. And my guides told me to make a video in my underwear. And I'm like, if that's not vulnerable, I'm like, I was just like, okay. So I did it. And I put it on YouTube. Yeah, and I put it on YouTube. And I'm like,
can we get the link to that?
After that, I was like taking pictures of my underwear and it's like that was freedom. Sometimes the scariest thing to see that we're still okay. It's like, if I could do that, I could do that. I could do that. Like, so it's working through that. Right. But a lot of people hold back. They're like, man, if I got that suggestion, I wouldn't do that. Right. But for me, my whole thing is about loving yourself, loving your body, right? Because of everything I went through. And a lot of people say we're not our bodies, but no, we are. This is vessel that we get to use while we're here in this physical reality. So to try to deny our bodies is denying the self, the whole self, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, right? So so it was like amazing. And I started making videos where I was dancing. I was just like, all these ideas started coming after that. When I wrote my first book, was a story of my life. I took that out of print because there was a lot of stuff in there that I didn't think that was appropriate to share with the world. But it was my healing journey. But after that, even though I took that one out of print, I was guided to write more books. But part of me was scared because I actually got a lot of judgment about that book from my parents' friends saying, you shouldn't reveal all that. That's not true. That didn't happen to you. I'm like, how do you know? You didn't live my childhood. You didn't see what happened behind closed doors. So there's a lot of things that like I felt a little bit guilty for in that book. And so writing my newer books was challenging, but the same token, I got like great feedback from them. So I just kept writing. I've written 5 books since then. And so my books aren't just like, they're not books that you sit down and read. So they're all channeled books. So each page is different. And each page is like a way to help people in their healing. So they're all channeled writings. Like I said, 3 of them are through poetry and 2 of them are spirit writings, which my higher self channels through me. It's not this Debra that you're seeing thinking. It's more of like an energy that flows through me, and my higher self, who I call loving voice, who has helped me in my healing and has given me the tools and has given me ways of helping myself and others beyond, like I said, what I've learned from anybody in this world. And it's fun when we get to that place where we're so connected with our truth, our higher self, inner child. I say it's like that integration. It's like, because our inner child, it needs to be loved, accepted, appreciated, adored, and felt that they're okay to share, because that's where our wisdom is. That's where our creativity is. That's where everything about our true essence is. It's in our inner child underneath all those hurts, pains, and wounds. So it's working there to help that inner child feel safe, so we could actually feel that sense in our bodies and connect with our higher self, who is our higher wisdom and our healer, and bring us together, and then our being who we are today. So we're feeling whole and complete. That we're not looking out there. We're just here to enjoy the journey and share our gifts and talents with humanity, and be of service in the best ways that we can. And there's so much that comes out of us that we don't even know is there. So yeah. So that's the fun of it. Like I started making cards. I made shirts, like everything that has to do with love. And I was so anti-love. It's like I have 2 tattoos. One's I don't know if you can see it. That one says love, and that one, like the wings of love, right? So it's like everything's love. I see it.
I love that. That's purple.
I can see it. Yeah, it's my healing symbol.
Oh my gosh, that's adorable.
Yeah. So I become obsessed with love, and it's like, because we are love, right? So what a better thing to be obsessed. I'm not like obsessed with love in the human sense. I'm obsessed with the energy of love, which is so beautiful, because it's such night and day. I mean, spending half of my life torturing myself, hating myself. My poetry when I was younger was all about, I hate myself, death and dying, fuck everybody, fuck it. It was like everything was like that teenage, anger, like anger. And my inner child was angry. She needed to be able to express that. And that's part of the healing. It's like a lot of people are scared to get in touch with that anger. Our inner child, as long as they have that suppressed anger, it's going to show up in physical manifestations in our bodies. It's going to show up in those reactions with human beings. It's going to show up because, I'm not an angry person. Well, that's consciously. If we're carrying that anger inside, it's running havoc in our bodies. A lot of people get fibromyalgia. A lot of people get chronic fatigue. A lot of people have, even illness. A lot of that is stored in the body because we never allowed ourselves to process and express and feel those emotions. And that's what healing is. It's not really as hard as people think. It takes a lot more energy to suppress it and resist it than to allow it to flow. It takes a lot more energy to work against ourselves than to flow with our natural energy. And and that's the beauty of it. And it's like, if you have an eating disorder, if you have an addiction, if you have, whatever issues you're having, it's not about that. It's about what's going on internally, because those are outer manifestations of inner afflictions. So,
and would you say that those manifestations, like those symptoms, the core of it was because of suppressing emotions, like not allowing yourself to feel
the trauma that happened, when we're younger, and we've all had it. A lot of people think trauma is like this big catastrophic event. Trauma could be as little as you were crying, well, not little, but to a little kid, it's scary when you're crying and nobody's picking you up, or you're told to stop crying or you're told to stop, screaming or whatever, all these things. Stop. Okay. I'm going to stop. Now that energy stored in the body. So anytime that feeling comes up, stop, you're wrong. You're going to get punished, back down, so that punishment is running havoc in the body. And the thing is, parents teach reward, punishment, right? So if you do this right, you'll get the reward. If you don't, but right according to them. So we grow up believing that in order to get the reward, we got to do what everybody else says in order to get the reward. But what's the reward? It's what people give us, right? That's not a reward.
Right.
That's a punishment.
That's a good point. No, that's absolutely right. Like, we keep working so hard to, get other people's approval.
Yeah.
And it's all just very like externally focused. It's never really even a guarantee, because you could never control people, and you're always seeking that. So it definitely feels disempowering and very like out of your control. But I love what you said though about how important it is to really just get to know our feelings and also not judge ourselves for the feelings we have. I feel like, especially things like anger, there's a lot of resistance to it because, like what you said, like people feel like it's not a good emotion, or it's like you shouldn't be angry and things like that. So I love that you pointed that out. Like there's really, it's as if, you know, not one emotion's better than the other. It's just you want to let yourself feel that and acknowledge it, and let it be there to help you heal. Oh yeah. Hi. Oh no, I wonder if any of them went through.
That's okay.
Okay, but
I didn't hear you at all. You were talking about the reward and trying to get the reward.
Right, and how it's not guaranteed because it's dependent on external circumstances, and then also how important it is to just let yourself feel any emotion and not judge yourself for feeling a certain way, because we get into this judgment about the negative emotions we feel, and then we don't want to feel them, then we keep suppressing them. So I thought that was a good point. Like, you know, there's no like right or wrong emotion. It's just all about like letting yourself be present with it, letting yourself feel that, and then be curious about it, but not like judging yourself for feeling that way.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think that's so important. Like, you really don't hear that a lot. I honestly don't hear, especially with my experience in the hospital, like working as a nurse for 8 years, you will never hear anything about like letting those emotions be there. Like coping skills that we taught in the hospital, you know, a lot of it was based on the external rewards. So, like, you know, just kind of like do yoga, take a walk, and things like that. But not a lot of what we teach was really about emotional, like just allowing the feelings.
Yeah,
looking at that.
Emotional intelligence, and a lot of us don't know that because it wasn't reflected back to us. So, you know, seeing somebody, you know, like me or a therapist who understands this, to hold that space so we can learn how to do that for ourselves, you know, because that's like a healthy parenting. But if we don't have that role model to show us, then we don't even know what that is, right? So it's everything is a learned response. And a lot of times, I mean, I always say you spend the first 40 years of your life being conditioned, and you spend the next 40 years of your life unconditioning everything you learn.
Oh my gosh, that's so true.
You die. Oh, right? But yeah, you want to get to that point where you're free to really live in your authenticity. And it's not easy, because authenticity means you're true. You speak how you feel, regardless on how anybody feels. Now, you're not doing it to get back. There's a whole difference there. You're not doing it to say, you know, I'm going to say this or whatever. You're just doing it, because this is me and this is how I feel and this is my truth. You know, especially with social media today, all you need is one bad comment and boom, you know, if it goes viral, people are going to filter their perceptions about you according to that comment. Because a lot of people are scared of expressing their truth because social consequences are at stake. I mean, you see it right now with all these things that they're talking about, you know, in the news or whatever. It's like they're talking about celebrities and things. Who knows if any of these stories are true? But then you see it all over Facebook. Oh, they filter their perceptions and points of views by somebody else's point of view.
Right.
You know, that's why it's important to really think for ourselves and not prejudge anything, and to form our own opinions based on the truth. Like I always ask my heart to show me, not what I've learned from other people, you know. And I do my best to see people's essence instead of their behavior, you know. It's like you can love the person and not their behavior. No, I can't love them because they're mean. Well, why not? Love is at a soul level. The personality is mean because they're a little child saying, I don't know how to handle this, please love me. You know, so when we get to know people through that arena and have more compassion, not only for others, but for ourselves when we're angry and upset, right? So recently you talked about, well, we need to prove ourselves to look outside for approval. Is that what you said? Perform to get approval?
Right.
The thing is, we do that to ourselves too. It's like we think we need to perform. We never can meet those expectations because it's always like, it's never good enough. If we're trying to perform to get the prize or to get love, it's never good enough because there's always going to be something else, something else, something else. But if we could start from now, okay, right now, I love and appreciate myself exactly as I am right here today. I love and accept myself exactly as I am right here today. That doesn't mean that we don't make changes. The thing is, we love who we are right now today, because if we don't start from here, doesn't matter how much we do, we'll still have something else to pick ourselves as, because that's the belief that's creating it. So say, you know, oh, I want a very successful coaching business. Okay. So now I have 20 new clients. Okay. Now I need 40. Now I need 60. Now there's nothing wrong with growing and expansion, but it's where we're coming from. Is that motivation because I don't feel good enough? Or is that motivation because, hey, I can help more people. This is so awesome. I'm expanding. I'm growing. I'm learning more about myself. This is so much fun. Or is it like, I don't feel good enough. Now I need 40. Now I need $1 million. Now I need $2 million. Now I need $3 million. It's like all that. That's all identity stuff. And we'll never, ever reach that point where we have inner peace if we're continuously chasing things in the outer world, you know?
Right. So. Right. And I love that how simply you put it. Like, it could just literally start with just loving and accepting yourself where you are right now. Yeah. And that's very similar to what I teach with eating too, because there's a lot of judgment that comes into like not eating what you were planning to eat and things like that, or overeating. And so there's that tendency to judge. But when you just go back to the present and you just really remind yourself, like you can accept yourself as you are in the moment, it can make such a difference in that healing process and moving forward. So I think that's a really, really awesome way to start with that.
Yeah.
I was curious, like, one more question, with everything going on, you know, with we have these things happening in the world, like the pandemic and these protests and things that have been going on, like what has helped you stay, you know, I guess like present and loving, even when these things, like all these situations are happening in our world that really have been affecting a lot of people. What has helped you with that personally?
Yeah, you know, I totally see the whole bigger picture of it all. And I've been writing about this for the past, I want to say like 2 years, that a great awakening is happening. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but, you know, we do need to be shaken up to wake up. And from the spiritual perspective, you know, there's this needed to happen, maybe not in this way to this extent, but, you know, human beings are so programmed and so conditioned, and we don't change until we have to, you know. And it is hard, you know. People are losing loved ones, and people are having, you know, financial issues and things like that, and a lot of it is actually not everybody, but a lot of people are reflecting what has true meaning to me, what has value to me, you know, because a lot of that outer stuff has been taken away from us, you know.
Right.
The Black Lives Movement, we need to see this stuff, you know. It's like until it's in our face, we don't look at it, right? So this has been going on for years, you know, and we need to pay attention. We need to see what's really going on. You know, a lot of stuff's coming to the surface, and we can't close our eyes to it. But just be careful, because the media does, you know, say things that maybe is more exaggerated than anything, you know, to fear people, to scare people. And once they have a hold of your health, they can do anything. You know, it's like, okay, because that's, you know, that's survival for people. So once, like right now, they can totally control us, because they can tell us anything to do and we'll do it, because our health is at risk, right? So as long as we fear that, then we're giving our we're putting our lives in the hands of people, I want to say, who don't know what the fuck they're doing, but they do. They want power over everybody. They know what they're doing. They know how human beings work. Fear. When you you scare anybody, you got control over them. You know, our survival is at stake, because once we're dependent on the government for money, which has happened, right? Once we're dependent on anything outside of ourselves, they own us if we're dependent on them. So all this stuff is coming up. It's the shadows. It's the collective shadows. A lot of people are home, so they have to deal with a lot of their feelings and their issues. They're together with their partners. A lot of that stuff's coming to the surface. They can't run and go to work. They're home together. So it's a great awakening because it's a great healing. Now, if people want to face their stuff, that's great. If they don't want to face their stuff, that's great too. But it's an opportunity to do the healing so they can be free. As long as they're in a human body, as long as we're in a human body, So, I mean, my whole thing is I always just wanted to be happy. That's all I ever wanted. And then when I started doing my healing, and nothing really changed in the outer, but one day I was just like, oh my God, I'm happy. And there's nothing, I didn't win $1 million in the lottery. I didn't get married. I didn't I was just happy. I'm that's what true happiness is. That happiness of being so connected to yourself and all that is that's eternal bliss. That's, and most people don't understand that because they haven't experienced it. But once we experience it, all that other stuff in the world, all the running from ourselves, all the resisting, all the chasing, all that just falls away. It's not an overnight fix. It's a commitment. And commitment, what you're doing is you're committing to yourself. When somebody comes to see you, they're investing in themselves. They're saying, I believe in myself. I'm worth this. And you're that container that helps them, that holds them in that space of their commitment to themselves. At least that's how I see it. I'm not giving my clients the answers. I'm helping them to find the answers with them. A lot of people feel like they don't have those answers because maybe they were always told they were wrong for how they were feeling. So a lot of people will go to psychic. I need to know, that anxiousness. I need to know what's going to happen in my life. And that's understandable if you were raised in a family where, there was a lot of trauma or there was a lot of fighting, the need to control stems from that. It's a survival mechanism. So I need to know how my life is going to go because it's a survival mechanism. But when we're in survival, we can actually enjoy our life. As long as we're in survival, we're trying to protect ourselves, we're trying to control, we're trying to figure things out, we're trying to be somebody else wants us to be, and we're not living in our truth.
Right. Man, you said so many amazing things here. But one thing I did want to say is I loved how you framed the whole situation going on in the world, how you said it's a great awakening. And I love that you said it had to happen so we could just work on these things that we've been kind of putting off and suppressing and not taking a look at, So I love that. I actually never really heard about it in that way. So I love that sort of idea of that we need this so we know what's going on.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. And I love that. I feel like there was so much you said that was so good. I'm just oh my gosh, I'm trying to get a hold of all of it. And then the last thing you said was with remind me again, the last thing you just said was the thing about.
I was what did I say? Rewind.
I know.
I don't know. The energy when it flows through me, it's it's flowing. I'm not using this mind. It's just it just.
No, I remember you were saying the trauma, when we have
the collective trauma.
Right. When we have these traumas that I think you were saying when we get them from childhood and then was that related to when we don't look at it? But I mean, I think the basic point that I wanted to share was just the fact that I think stepping into, I love that you're saying the theme of this talk was really really getting to know yourself, really honoring yourself for who you are, getting to know what you like and getting to know also what your triggers are and being okay with those triggers, getting curious about them, not trying to shoo them away, not trying to avoid them with food and drinks and things like that. And then facing them and not really using that as an opportunity for growth rather than seeing it as something bad or negative. that would lead to, you know, the healthy relationships with the people, like being able to set healthy boundaries. So I love that. I think there's so much amazing things in here. Thank you so much for sharing all that. Is there any last things you want to say about just about what you do, like how you help your clients and where to find you if people are interested in working with you?
Yeah, well, you can find me on Facebook, Debra Mittler, and you can find me on my website, which is livingintheloving.com.
Oh no, hello. Oh no, Deborah, you there? Deborah. Hello. Oh, there you are. Hello? Are you there? Hello.
Hey, come on. You
Yeah.
see me?
Yeah, there you are.
You can find me on, oh, a cat. Oh my God, there's a cat.
Where's my kitty? It's my cat.
Hey, cat. Aww. Aww.
But yes, please repeat everything you said. Sorry. I want them to be able to find you.
Where did we go? Well, this will be interesting to see how this uploaded to Facebook.
I know, I'm really curious. I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, I really just, I'm like crossing my fingers that all the good stuff you said, like, stayed.
Were you watching it
like,
at the same time?
Yeah, like I saw that it went live here. So I don't know if it stayed all in one piece. So I hope so. But I did see the live. But okay, so I think it's still going. But
Awesome.
go ahead and let us know where we could find you and what your links are.
Oh, yeah. So livingintheloving.com. You can go to Amazon and check out my books, but my books are also on my website. And find me on Facebook, Debra Mittler.
All right.
I have one page. Well, I have 3 pages, but they're all different. Like, oh no, do I have 3? No, I have 2 now.
Oh, nice. Uh-oh. Where'd you go? Oh no. All right, you guys. In the meantime, you could look at my cat, Coffee. Hello, Coffee. So we're gonna figure out. Yeah, sorry for that. Apologize for the technical glitches, but it happens. Hi, Coffee. Hi. Hey, Coffee. Hi. Say hi to Facebook. Oh, where are you going? She's going behind my chair. Ah, you made it.
Oh my God. Okay. I think that saying's like, okay, time to go now. I'm gonna play.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm going to post all your links. I think you've been amazing. And I'm like, even like, this just really shows how much of an amazing energy you have. You still kept showing up no matter what was going on in this call.
That was fun.
I just love that. Like, your energy is so contagious. And you guys, like, Debra's the most loving person, like one of the most loving people I've ever met. Just check out her Facebook. Just like, if you want to read something that feels like a warm hug, like read her entries. Like, I swear, she's like some of the most loving things I've ever read. So thank you so much, Debra, for your time. Thank you for sharing all your amazing knowledge with us. And I can't wait to spread the word about you and what you do. And thanks for bearing with the technical glitches. But I want to do like a quick recap, at least like break down the main points we talked about for people who might have not caught some of what we talked about. So
yeah. Wow. Well, thank you for having me. That was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. I always love playing and having fun. That's what it's about, right?
Yes.
Sharing the love and sharing the healing and sharing what we learn along the journey and with others. So you know what? It's like, who resonates, great. Who doesn't, that's great too. Just always, I always say to my clients, and even when I post, always check in. There is no right or wrong way to be. What's right or wrong is according to what you feel internally. So take that. And thank you again for having me. And that was a lot of fun.
Okay, thanks, Debra. Bye, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Okay. Is it over?
I think, let me see.